I read all kinds of books at the time. I'm just like, give me information. And the problem was is that there's a lot of books written by the parent out there. And when I would read those books, I wanted to know what was going on with the kid. Like I wanted this whole story. And then if the person in recovery writes a book about their story, I love those books. But I wanted to know where the heck the parent was. Like what was happening in the home? How does this manifest, together? And I couldn't find that, and I wanted that. And so I decided to write the story and tell ours, use our story to do that for people who may want the same thing. I figured I wasn't the only one. But it is the story of really from start to finish of how she started using and how I found out and what we tried to do and what worked and what didn't, and then how she got into recovery and then or treatment and what treatment was like. And she was in treatment for 10 months. And then when she moved home and then relapse, what was that like? And then recovery and where we are today. So it is a full circle book, but the big thing is it's told by both me and her. So every chapter you get what was going on with me and you get a timeline of stuff. And then I interviewed her for her part and transcribed her words so that you could know what she was thinking and what was going on with her at the same time.
Hi, and welcome back to Old School. Today, our teacher in class is going to be Janelle Martin, author of Losing Her, Finding Us. She's a mama who went through so much, such a journey, and had a adult child with addiction. Actually, it maybe even started in her teens, but she's walked so much, and her story is told in her book both from her point of view and from her daughter's point of view, which I think so many people who struggle with addiction would like to be able to feel like they were heard or had an ear or could understand what's going on. So it's pretty exciting. We have a great time, and she is just a delight. So I want you to welcome to class today, Janelle.
Okay. So, my story started when my after having my children, and I won't give you all the details, but we went through a lot of stuff. I divorced my my kids' dad when they were 3 and 5, so that was very young in their lives, and the relationship had become abusive. So it was something I needed to do. But divorce has an impact on children, no matter what the reason is for it happening, even if it is maybe for the right reasons. It can still have a very negative impact on the family and on the children, especially. So I understand that now. So it started there. I went through a lot of stuff, co-parenting with my ex-husband, who really turned into he didn't want to co-parent with me after I remarried when the children were 8 and 10. So my daughter's the youngest one. She was 8 and my son was 10. And so he used the children to kind of get back at me. He didn't want them to have a relationship with their stepdad. And my ex-husband had already moved out of state, so he wasn't around. So he really did not like the thought of his children being raised by somebody else. So he tormented my children by telling them all kinds of horrible things about me. And I don't know all of the nitty gritty about what was going on, but I know that it created a lot of hardship in our home and a lot of tension. And there was always a lot of deprogramming kind of to do when they would come back from visiting with him. And it culminated when my daughter was in 8th grade ish, so very tender age. Her dad fought me for custody of the kids, and he made it an emergency as if the children were being mistreated by not
Mm.
really by me, but by their stepdad, which wasn't true at all. But my son had turned 15, and my ex-husband thought this whole time he thought as soon as he turns 15, he can tell a judge that he wants to live with his dad, and that's what would happen. He would get his son. And that's not what happens. And I know that's what a lot of people think, but that's really not how it works. And my daughter didn't want to go live with her dad, and she was included in the lawsuit because they were brother and sister, but she quickly realized it wasn't about her. And that really hurt her, to say the least. And that was when she really realized that, or thought that nobody cared about her and that she was unimportant. Everything was about her brother. They didn't go live with their dad. They ended up, he lost that custody suit and they stayed here, but life was never the same for her and really for either of my children. So we went through a lot during the high school years with my son. In fact, when he graduated, he went to live with his dad then, and that was 9 years ago. And we have been mostly estranged since then.
I'm so
So
sorry.
there's that part. But then also because he didn't get to go live with his dad, he blamed, or they blamed her, my daughter, for not going along with their plan. And they both abused her after that. So she went through a lot during that time. And when she started experimenting with drugs, she was very much primed. She was in a lot of pain, and the drugs took away her pain. So she became quickly addicted and didn't want to let that go because it was the only thing she felt that kept her alive. So I went through hell with her and her finding out that she was using. And then, I actually sent her to live with her dad because she wouldn't stop and it had gotten horrible. And then this was during her senior year of high school. So about midway through her last semester of school, we had hit a crisis point. Sending her to live with her dad didn't help things. It, in fact, sped it up and got worse. But so she ended up in treatment and for about a year, and she had to drop out of high school. A whole lot of things happened, but that experience of having her in treatment, and I actually um, got into recovery as well, so that I could have conversations with her and understand what she was going through and what she was learning. And I really just wanted to be able to talk to her. But what I found was that the 12-step program that this treatment center had changed my life. So
Mhm.
from that moment on, it helped me rebuild a real relationship, solid relationship with my daughter. And it also changed the trajectory of my life. So, up until that point, I had done a lot of things. Mostly, I was home with my kids, but I had started working outside the home more when they were in high school because they had driver's licenses and they had practices and they were pretty self sufficient and they have jobs. They were required to work and have their own money and pay for their gas and all that. So really, on the outside, they were extremely responsible and well behaved kids, but there was just a lot of emotional and mental turmoil that was going on in the home that nobody else really knew about. And so I didn't take a job outside the home until they were much older. And so until then I had taught fitness classes. I had gone back and got my accounting degree, and I was running businesses for people, and I was doing all kinds of things. But this experience through drug addiction and recovery, I don't know, I veered left or something. It just, I met somebody who at a community meeting because Reagan and I, she's my daughter, we were going at this point to recovery meetings, support group meetings, and we had been going together and we'd been asked to speak at a community meeting and it was a small group of people and this gentleman was there and he came up to me afterward. He had lost his son to overdose and just wanted to connect with me, but he told me he'd started a nonprofit that was going to help people in recovery stay sober, and it was going to help by treating the brain and rebalancing the brain so that the brain was functioning better and it would help them with their anxiety and depression and all the things and the reasons why people start using drugs in the first place. And that sounded like, I don't know, it sounded like music to my ears. How do I do that? That sounds so fascinating. And so he didn't really take me serious at the time, but I ended up badgering him a little bit, and he hired and had me trained on the system. So it's called ISS microcurrent neurofeedback, which is a big long mouthful, but it is a very effective system using electrodes that helps the brain to rebalance itself, and it really is kind of like resetting a computer. So when your computer starts not really functioning very well, it's kind of getting stuck, and you shut it off and you turn it back on, and all of a sudden everything flows better. That's the effect of what this system does, and you can't feel it. So it's not, doesn't hurt, like it's very, very pleasant. And so so in using that system, I got much more involved in healing work. I was already doing support groups, and I had sponsored some other parents in the 12 steps as well, trying to give back some of the gifts that I had been given during the time that we were getting help. And it just kind of snowballed. So I got my chemical dependency counselor license. And then I decided I went to go back and get my master's degree at 51 years old. So I
Yay.
went back and did that. And then I, became a licensed professional counselor, and I got certified in brain spotting. And then I became a Dr. Amends certified brain health professional. And I recently got my doctorate in functional medicine. And so like, my life has just completely changed. It is all about connection and healing with people, but in a healthy and holistic way, because I come from a place of addiction and substances, and I don't like that any of that stuff tried to kill my daughter, and I'm not okay with it. So there is a better way. In my opinion, it's a better way. We
Sure.
help people eliminate, or get rid of their medications, and look at things from a natural perspective. We have a natural health store in our office, and we offer nutraceuticals in lieu of pharmaceuticals for the brain stuff. We also heal the brain, so sometimes none of that stuff is
You know,
needed.
we come from such a place right now in society. We shoot, fire, aim, or how is that? Is that in the right order? Anyway, we go the wrong order instead of,
Yes.
and we go straight for medication and even supplementation. I love supplementation. I am
Yes.
63. I'm on no medications. I do have a bioidentical hormone, but I have no conditions. And I won't even take an aspirin, because if I have a headache, I want to know why I have a headache. If I've been staring at a screen too long, well, then I get up, go outside in the sunlight, take a couple laps around the building, and then come back, or whatever it might be. But we're so quick to give medication. I have a little nephew who, among other things, this poor little boy has been through so much, but apparently he was going to a counselor. And I found out through my brother that my niece was sending him to this. I don't think she was a counselor. I think she was a psychiatrist. She might have been. Anyway, she gave him a pill and told him this pill would keep him from having nightmares. I'm like, how does that happen? How do you make that kind of promise? And now, in this little boy's mind, if he doesn't take that, and it could have been a placebo, she could have just been screwing with him, but how is he going to go to bed any night without taking that pill? Yeah, it was reprehensible to me. I wanted to fly back there and go smack the crap out.
Right. That's
But
horrible.
I have not been invited into this scenario. I am just there to help my brother not go smack the crap out of somebody. But all of that, you're right. I mean, my daughter's so sweet. Okay, so I've been through a divorce with my parents, and it was awful. And then it was just no, it was like he didn't care about us, but he wanted us to go on visitation. Then I went through a divorce, and my ex was very lots of infidelity, and he didn't even ask for joint custody. And my daughter was 15 at the time it was all going down, but he did force us to take her to a counselor because he thought I was withholding her from him. She was just mad because
Yeah.
she was old enough to know what went down, and he had lied to her personally on a couple of occasions about this other woman. So all of that, she drove her addiction of choice has been sugar and food. And she has even determined, she had some friends when she's a Christian, and when she turned 21, all these friends of hers from the Christian school she went to wanted her to know if she was going to go out and get a drink. And she's like, you know what? Not because I think it's some kind of sin. She goes, although alcohol controlling you is, what her reasoning was, I'm so addictive in nature, and I became so addicted to food because she was using it for self-harm. She had allergies to some of the stuff she was eating, but she didn't care. She was doing it anyway. But she was wise enough from the Holy Spirit to know that she wasn't going to stick her toe somewhere where there could just be another addiction added to the pile. And she struggles with the addiction to food and sugar still. Where, and you're right, there should be, a recovery, celebrate recovery for that as well. But I honestly believe where you're headed, and I had another lady on who was a Dr. Amen brain health trainer is what they're called, right?
Yep.
That's the certification. And I think all of this is the mission control. We need to go here to start to understand so many things, like where the emotions are attached to it too, and why what is done, and what we think we're medicating, and just like of the 2-year-old, when you tell them no, we're not going to play with this. If you just tell them no all day long, you're gonna lose that battle. But if you say, how about we do this instead, now you're going to start to, win the hearts and minds.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, that's an amazing journey. And so now you're at a place where your daughter is in recovery. And
Yes.
so she's on board with this. Now, you wrote the book, Losing Her, Finding Us. Tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about that.
So that book, and it looks like this. This book
I love
is,
the butterflies, by the way. I don't know if you know. Oh,
yes,
I don't have one of my books.
I can show you. There's one on my arm.
My
This one
first,
This one is
my,
for a
I
year
see behind
sober.
you.
When she finally got a
Oh,
year sober, this was a painting that she had done after her relapse, and we tattooed it on our forearms together on her 1 year sober birthday. So,
oh.
so it's very special. And so butterflies are just they're special to us because I mean, both of us have gone through such a transformation through our experience, and we believe everybody can do that, no matter what you've been through. And so our office has butterflies everywhere,
I
and
see them behind you. My
they're
first
everywhere.
book was called Butterfly Stitches: The Metamorphosis of Healing.
Oh, I love that.
And and my retreats that the Lord has called me to do are called Inside the Chrysalis. And they're a deep dive, more of a recovery kind of healing journey where it's intimate, where there's only 5 people that I accept so that we can keep it, so people don't feel like they're exposing themselves that, to a crowd of a couple hundred or whatever might be, so they
Yeah.
can feel the security of that
Yeah.
process.
Yes.
So, okay, so this book,
Yeah.
um,
So the book is this is the book that I wanted to read at the time that I was in the darkness. I really,
Mm.
really wanted to understand how this happens, what is happening, and what to do about it. I didn't. I read all kinds of books at the time. I'm just like, give me information. And the problem was is that there's a lot of books written by the parent out there. And when I would read those books, I wanted to know what was going on with the kid. Like I wanted this whole story. And then if the person in recovery writes a book about their story, I love those books. But I wanted to know where the heck the parent was. Like what was happening in the home? How does this manifest, together? And I couldn't find that, and I wanted that. And so I decided to write the story or and tell ours, use our story to do that for people who may want the same thing. I figured I wasn't the only one. And but it is the story of really from start to finish of how she started using and how I found out and what we tried to do and what worked and what didn't, and then how she got into recovery and then or treatment and what treatment was like. And she was in treatment for 10 months. And then when she moved home and then relapse, what was that like? And then recovery and where we are today. So it is a full circle book, but the big thing is it's told by both me and her. So every chapter you get what was going on with me and you get a timeline of stuff, and then I interviewed her for her part and transcribed her words so that you could know what she was thinking and what was going on with her at the same time. And so it just gives you that complete picture and shows you how different it is. For what, as parents, we think we know everything. We think we know best. And, I think with a lot of things, we probably do because our kids haven't had the same experiences yet. But But when you can't meet them where they are if you don't know where they are and you're not
And if
willing.
you're not willing to listen to them
Right.
answer that question, if they feel like answering that question will upset you, or if it creates more anxiety for them, and that could be true of even happy situations. We aren't mind readers, and you kind of learn your child's mannerisms and kind of how they respond to stuff, and you can tell when they're hiding or maybe curbing an answer or what have you. But even for the good stuff and there's always for all kids, whether it's teenage years or 20s or whatever, there's a period of time where they're just like more one syllable, one word, and not because they don't love us and not because they're hiding anything. We're just not going to be who they want to hang out with.
Right.
It doesn't mean they don't love us. But then when you're going to go through the fire, well, that becomes a whole nother thing. They need to know that we can be depended upon, not to make them feel worse because they're already shaming themselves, and to listen without that judgment. And I think this is awesome. I can't even imagine. I talk about my story that the Lord asked me to write contains a lot of abuse, physical, sexual, emotional. My ex was very manipulative and cheating on me, so from birth through my divorce, it's just a lot. I broke it into 2 books. But I say that if I'm in a room of 100 people, men and women, 90 of them, and that's probably conservative, have walked some of what I've been through and may or may not have started any healing, let alone be healed. And I know I believe 100% in my King Jesus still doing miracles. But I think most of us this side of heaven are not going to completely heal, because it's that journey that he wants us to use to help others. And he wants everyone. He's not willing that any should perish. So there's 8 billion people on the planet. We've still got work to do. So I think that I can't even imagine with this day and age and with the things that you can be addicted to, not just drugs, how this couldn't be just magnificent for so many people. I would love, if you were up for us to do a book giveaway together. And I have a couple other people who are in a whole, like another, category, but each of us is dealing with the things that we walk through the fire for. And I think that this could become like a every normal home first aid kit, to be honest with you.
I would love that. I do think it's super powerful. And I think it's powerful also for people who maybe they aren't walking this path and maybe they don't know it yet, but they know somebody. Everybody knows somebody who
Yes.
has. And one of the problems with being a parent and having this happen with a child is we don't know who to reach out to. We are ashamed. We are scared. We know we're going to be judged and we don't have anybody to talk to. And I would love for more people to have an understanding so that they can be that person that's safe for a parent to reach out to and confide
Absolutely.
in, because we need that. It's so isolating to be in the position of having a child that is in crisis with drugs and not have anybody to talk to or know where to turn. And I didn't know. And I know there's a lot of people out there like me, never expected to be in this position. And
Well, and
having,
we're not called to judge. It's not a fruit of the
I
spirit.
know.
We're called to love our neighbor as ourselves. And that's what I believe our calling from God is. I don't know everybody, I don't know your faith position, but I'm just saying that's
Absolutely.
that's what I believe. And so nowhere in there, because during political seasons and election cycles and this, that, and the other, everybody wants to cabbage on to their favorite profiling thing. But in my opinion, we're born with a sin nature, and any one of us, we all have a sin of choice. You know what I mean? And so I'm not going to hold up a mirror to you because I don't want you to turn it back on
Good
me.
point. Yeah.
What I would rather do is show you how the Holy Spirit and my King Jesus have walked me through this healing journey. And people meet me and they're like, there is absolutely no way that what you said in your story is true. And I mean, they're not being mean or anything. They're just like, I just find it hard to believe. And I go, that is only the work of the Holy Spirit for me. And it doesn't mean that any bit of it was easy. It doesn't mean that nowhere in there did I think, what's going on, but, our God's big enough to take our questions and still, be there for us and help us to comfort others with the comfort we've received, and having someone to talk to, because the abuse I went through, I had an abortion when I was in 16, and that was back when things were first starting. So, I can be standing next to a group of people, conservatives, Christians, whoever, and they all have a judgment for that. So am I going to open my mouth, or am I going to sit there and like hold everything inside? So very much so. And we are probably our worst judge when our
For sure.
children walk through something hard.
Oh, for
What did I do to make them feel like they needed to do this, And I'm so excited for your book. I try to get everybody's book before I had them on my first season. I ordered every book. I read it all the way through before I had the guest on,
Oh,
and I was exhausted.
I bet. Oh my goodness. That's hard to do.
Well, and I have 26 guests a year.
That's a lot of
And
books.
I'm like, I know some people love reading and have the time, but I have a day job. I work in accounting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's not enough hours in the day.
And then I'm writing my own books that he's called me to, and now he
Yes.
wants me to launch retreats. It's a lot of work. So, but I absolutely can't wait to get a hold of it. I would love to create kind of just a beautiful healing. Like I said, my retreats are
Yeah.
inside the chrysalis. Yours is the butterfly. And, I just think this would make a beautiful healing giveaway. I can't wait to do it. So I'll reach
That's
out after we're done.
that's a great idea. I love it. Yes.
So I did have one question.
Yeah.
Your daughter, you've said that you've talked to her and you've translated it to this and stuff.
Mhm.
What would you say was the most surprising thing she had to say about whether it's why she started, why she really, anything along this journey? What was the most surprising thing for you to hear?
Even though it's been like this long, one of the biggest things I think it just hurt my heart so much was when she described, this is early in the life, maybe even first or second chapter, but the depth of the pain that she was in earlier on than I ever, I guess I just wasn't aware. She hid it well. I probably wasn't looking for it. I'm a very positive person, always been the glass half full person. So it could be that I didn't want to see it. Probably that was part of it. Could be that she didn't show it like she could have, but she two things. I mean, one, she was very, very, very depressed early in the high school years and struggling, and she had tried to take her life, and I didn't know. And I mean, there's a lot of God moments in our story, and I feel like I had gotten on the natural train when she was young. So I didn't have medications and things in our medicine cabinet at home. I had essential oils and things like that. So I was already on that boat. And so, like, she would get sick in elementary school. I would come to the school with my essential oils, and the nurse would, she'd smell me coming, and she was really cool though. She's like, "You do what you need to do," because they want permission to give him a Tylenol or whatever. We don't need
This
that.
was
So,
me.
yes. So I would do that, and her body always responded really well to them, and she would go back to class, and she'd be fine. So fast forward several years, and she's looking for something to overdose with, and we don't have anything in the house.
I'm not. I'm smiling because I'm thinking, did she try to OD on chamomile or something? I mean, but I mean,
She couldn't find anything.
right.
Couldn't find anything, so she had to just go to bed and cry herself to sleep. Is
Oh,
what she said. So like
but
I
that's a God moment. How
yes.
beautiful.
It absolutely is. And I didn't know it at the time until I was interviewing her for this book that that's what had happened. And, I mean, it's heartbreaking to hear that your daughter really wanted to die. And I mean, looking back, that never crossed my mind that even in the midst of all of the stuff that I knew was happening, suicide wasn't on my mind at all that she would be desperate enough to do something like that I just didn't know that. So the second thing is not during the writing of this book, but she was sexually abused when she was around 5. And it was when she would go visit her dad. Her dad was friends with his neighbor who had a teenage son, and they would spend a lot of time over there. And the teenage son was sexually abusing my daughter, but she never told anyone until
Mhm.
she was in treatment at 17
Which is
for
why
her
she
drug.
didn't want to go live with him either, right?
Well, when she went to live with her dad, he was already moved out of state and he was somewhere else. So that there was no real risk of that happening, at least not with the same people, but there was probably a safety factor for her,
Sure.
because nobody protected her and nobody stopped it. What happened was, I think her dad ended up moving. I think that was the only reason that it stopped. And I don't really know, honestly, because I wasn't there. But
You said earlier that both your ex and your son abused her. Do you mean emotionally?
yes.
Okay.
Well, my
I mean, I
son.
didn't want to, I don't want you to tell a story for her that she doesn't want told like this, but
No,
the hair rises on the back of my neck because I've been all of it. Physically beaten by my biological father, sexually assaulted, and for over a year and a half by a stepfather's brother, and so on and on. And when you said that, I just kind of, so I'm sorry to hear that. Does she have any relationship with her dad or her brother at this point?
She is working on that. That we talk about that in the book too. There was a good period of time when she was in recovery, or had gotten into recovery, and she had done some counseling and some trauma work, that she had to pause those relationships
Mm,
because they weren't healthy for her. And I really it's really amazing to see somebody make those decisions, because it really is in her best interest, and it will keep her on the sober path, because these are people that trigger me, even though they're my dad and my brother. And she talks about that in the book. So it's a very brave thing to do, and very hard, I know. But she did it. And then a couple of years ago, I don't even know how long now, maybe 3 years ago. She's 6.5 years sober now. So this has been a long journey, and it continues. But she did decide she wanted to make amends with her brother, and they hadn't spoken in well over a year, maybe two. But she found a way to reach out to him. He'd blocked her from everything too, so she wasn't able to get a hold of him. But as she finished her 12 steps, she she her sponsor actually forced her to make amends and figure out a way to do that in person, or they weren't face to face, but they were over the phone with her brother. Um, and she did that, and it opened a door to their relationship. They did have a good conversation, but he's been in and out. He doesn't really keep the relationship going. He's probably very busy in his life. I don't know. I don't want to make excuses or make him sound like a bad person, because I don't think he is. But that relationship hasn't maintained. It's not dead completely, but it's also not. They don't talk often.
thriving. Well, and that's hard too. I wouldn't, I'm not in the middle of this, but I know, like, I have two brothers. I have no sisters. And my older brother and I talk more often than my younger brother and I do, because when he comes, he lives in Hawaii. And when he comes to the mainland to go to work, wherever he goes, he stays at my house. So I just see him more.
Yeah.
Were he not to do that, I don't know that he and I would speak any more than my younger brother and I do. And we're older. You'd think we'd keep in touch because you don't know when we're not going to be able to.
Yeah.
But guys are in particular not great at that. Although I have lots of girlfriends who, if I didn't reach out to go do stuff, I wouldn't go do anything with them probably. It was
Yeah.
so, I don't understand why people do that, but because I want to feel like I'm worth your time too, not just a
Sure.
pet that got you to go to lunch or something. You know what I mean?
And I
But
think that's how she feels too. Like she would like for it to be 50-50. I reach out to you and you reach out to me, and it just really isn't that way. But she also, not long after that, or maybe it was a year later, we went and saw a movie about near-death experiences. And I think it was called Life After Death, or I don't know, something like that. Or maybe it's just called After Death. And it was a powerful movie that we went and saw. And after that movie, there was a particular story in that movie that really got her thinking, and she decided that she needed to forgive her dad, because they hadn't had a relationship in years at this point, and because it was hurting her by not forgiving him, and she didn't want the weight of it anymore. And so she made the phone call and she started that relationship with, or that phone call with, I'm not calling you because I'm expecting anything from you. I want to tell you that I forgive you and I am not harboring any bad feelings anymore because it's not good for me and I have no expectation of a relationship with you, or I don't know, that's not the purpose of the call, but it did open the door and they do talk regularly still to this day. She has seen both her dad and her brother in person one time, and she's not comfortable yet seeing them alone. So she took a friend with her this time. It was in January of this year. So I don't know if that will happen again, but she's willing to entertain a relationship with both of them as long as it's a healthy one. She won't tolerate anything that doesn't serve her well. And I look at that and think how strong how strong of a person she is at 20, almost 25 years old, like I don't know that I didn't even think to be able to make those kinds of choices at 25.
yeah, my
So,
daughter will be 25 in November. And like I said, she made this choice. Like she's made a purity choice until she's done with college because she's watched so many friends fall, true love can't wait any longer. And so they drop out of college and now they're struggling to make ends meet. She goes, I don't want to meet somebody, get married, and then have to move back home with you. And I'm like, yeah, me either.
yeah, I don't want that either. Yes, that's a good plan. We're not doing
But
that.
I understand completely. I talk about the forgiveness in my books and in regard to my healing journey because I did not reach out or try to find any of my abusers, but I did forgive them. I forgave them long ago, actually, and forgiveness has nothing to do with them and nothing to do with the fact that they asked for it. Like my ex never has apologized, but I told him the day the last straw came down, I said to him, I forgive you because I can't carry this around, but you're out. We're done. And it's so funny because I have people, Christian and non, who are like, well, how can you still be mad at him or not want to hang out with him or whatever if if you forgave him? And I go, forgiveness has nothing to do with me liking him. I'm like, he was willing to get with another human, destroy both their families so they could be together. I think they're reprehensible human beings, but I forgive them and I don't wish them ill will. I just don't want to be friends with them. I mean, they one time sent a Christmas gift home with my daughter, and she was like sitting there. I go, what? And she goes, that's for you. And I was like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, we are not going to be pals. We're not going to hang out. I'm not going to
No.
go on a picnic. We're not going to have a joint Christmas. You ruined my family. Both of you purposefully ruined my family. In fact, over the course of 15 years.
Wow.
So forgiveness is something you absolutely have to dole out for yourself. You
Absolutely.
absolutely, and it is the first best weight. And the worst part of it is when we hang on to unforgiveness for ourselves.
Yeah.
I forgiving them all for acting like the world is easier. But me, for doing some of the things I did without praying about them, without seeking counsel first, it just it's a hard road. It was a hard thing to find forgiveness for myself. Like for my abortion, I just could not do it. And I finally went through this incredible, like 6-week long program that this lady ran out of her home. It was very secretive because she had had people infiltrate it and try and shame the people who were there. Like there were people who claimed to be Christians who wanted to shame the people, and then there were people who weren't, who wanted to shame her for help. It was just a whole thing. But
Wow.
I was able to finally walk this process, and I liken it to having a tumor removed with no anesthesia. It just was that painful of a process, but once it was gone, it was like, oh my goodness, why am I able to stand up straighter? Why am I lighter, for the process? So I think that your book sounds amazing. I think you're amazing. I think your daughter sounds amazing. I think we both have a couple of good girls.
Yeah, it sounds like
We're
it.
gonna go through what they go through, but look at how wonderful and how deep they're able to go even for themselves to
Yes.
see the self-care. She saw self-care, my daughter did, long before I
Oh,
saw it for
yes.
myself.
Oh, yeah.
She one day
I,
looked at me and she goes, "You need to stop letting people walk all over you." I was like, and I was 38 when I
he
had her.
was
So here I am, 40 years older, and I got her, this little smart aleck. She got my
he's right.
genes.
Yeah, he was right, I bet too. I
Yeah.
learned so much from my daughter. I still
Yes.
do. I mean, I don't know if they're coming into this world a little wiser, and I don't, in some ways than we were, because I feel like where I was at 25, I was nowhere near where she is at 25. It's going to be amazing to see what these girls do with their lives as they get older, because she's got it probably a 20 or 30-year head start on me, and
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm in a pretty darn good place, but I'm in my 50s. She's 25. Wow.
Yep.
She's going to,
I ask the Lord, every morning I say, thank you for sleep and thank you for waking me up. I don't know how many more years he has for me. I don't know that I want to live into my 90s and 100s, but I would love to live long enough to see my baby girl maybe get married, maybe have a kid if she wants to. I don't want to put that on her, but whatever she wants to do. Just because I agree. She is hustling. She just recently took on all my social media management, and we are in probably the sweetest place, except for when she was really little and she thought I was
yeah.
wonderful.
Oh, of course. Of course. I understand that.
She
Yeah.
thought I sang good. We all know better now. But
Right. Right.
okay. So the last thing I ask every one of my teachers, my substitute teachers, is what little nugget, what one thing do you wish you knew sooner or someone had told you sooner?
One thing.
Well, yeah, I know that's hard.
That is really hard. I mean, I guess from my journey, I wish I could I wish I could go back and change things? I don't think I do. But I do wish that I hadn't been so naive about so many things.
Mm.
I got married too young. I was 20 and I got into a relationship I thought was great, and then it turned out to be horrible. And then that affected the whole rest of my life, basically. And I do think people tried to tell me, and I don't know that there would have been a way to really clue me in. But I also wish that I had more, I guess, harder things happen, more tough experiences a little bit earlier on, because I really thought for many years of my life that this is pretty easy. Like, I got this. And then the bottom fell out of everything kind of all at once. And that was really awful. But then again, if somebody tells you, you don't learn.
We
So
don't
there,
we don't want to hear from anybody in our 20s, you
no,
know?
no,
We
that's
just
true.
don't. We're invincible. We don't buy health insurance. We just think, we've already got the whole one. And nowadays, with every ounce of what you think is information, it's not necessarily truth, but out there, I have had my daughter come back with some wisecracks, and I'm like, my that's not even remotely true. I'm like, if you're going to dump that on me, I have no problem. We can have an exchange, but go make sure you have facts before you like talk to me like that or say something like that. Because, as an adult, we're allowed, we can say whatever we need to say, but
Yeah.
just make sure that you have truth and that you didn't just hear some idiot on YouTube say it, because
Or
just because
TikTok.
it's on the internet, like that meme that says, don't or everything that's on the internet is true, and it's a quote by Abraham Lincoln.
Yes. Yes, it's
yeah.
terrible. It's terrible.
Well, you are delightful, and I can't wait to get your book. And then I will reach out when your episode's going to come out, and when we're gonna do this. We're gonna have a giveaway. It'll be
Yeah,
fun.
I would love that. That's so amazing. Yeah,
I'm so
let's
excited, and
do
I'm
it.
so glad Sarah recommended you come aboard. I want to thank you for coming to class today. What a great experience getting to hear about what Janelle and her daughter went through and how they are doing in recovery and how this can apply to anybody who's walking through really any type of addiction. And I will do, as I said, I will be reaching out to her. We'll have a great giveaway with my books and her book. And maybe, even a couple of other folks that I've had on the podcast. This could be really fun for you to be able to follow up and maybe reach out and get some of this information and this counsel as well. So if you like what's going on here, if you could head on over to the podcast on your favorite platform, like, subscribe, ring the bell, interact, reach out to us, and all of our connection information will be in the show notes. So go ahead and reach out to talk to any and all of us, and we'd love to hear from you. So thank you for coming to class today, and class dismissed.